So we're going to be watching some crazy ass videos on some CIA secrets. Okay? Once again, I'm 808. Thank you so much again for joining me. Grace and gratitude. I upload video every single week. That being said, let's get started. You already know how we do. Let's go.
The CIA created a vampire. CIA agents are masters of manipulation, and in the 1950s, they used that skill in a disturbing way. The CIA discovered the
Wait, did he say CIA created a vampire? Let's go.
deepest fears of several men. Then they turned that fear into a real-life monster. By the time it was over, grown men were running for their lives. This operation happened in the Philippines in 1950. Back then, the Philippine government was fighting a rebel group called the Hooks.
The Hooks?
Hook stands for Hukbong Bayan Laban sa Hapon, which literally means People's Army against the Japanese.
The Hooks were armed and dangerous. They moved through the countryside, causing problems for the government. The authorities wanted them stopped, so the CIA stepped in to help fight the rebels. But the CIA had its own reason for getting involved.
Whenever you read about the Hooks in American or pretty much any official history text, they're kind of just called an offshoot of the Soviet Union.
They believed the Hooks were backed by communists, and America wanted to stop communism before it spread further. But the CIA didn't send an army to crush the rebels. They sent one man. He was one of their most dangerous manipulators. The CIA officer was named Edward Lansdale. Before working with the agency, he worked in advertising.
Lansdale was an advertising executive in San Francisco. From that job, he developed knowledge as to how people's minds work.
Advertising is about influencing how people think and feel. That background shaped the way Lansdale fought. He believed in using psychology to defeat the enemy. As soon as he arrived in the Philippines, Lansdale learned everything he could about the rebels. He looked at what they loved, what they feared, and what they believed. Soon he had a breakthrough. He realized that many villagers, including the rebels, were very superstitious. They believed in spirits, witchcraft, and monsters. One monster terrified them more than any other. It was called the Aswang.
The Aswang is one of the most feared monsters in Filipino folklore, which dates back to at least the 16th century.
The Aswang is a terrifying creature that hunted people at night. Some believed it drank blood. It was pretty similar to a vampire. To Lansdale, the Aswang wasn't just a superstition. It was a weapon waiting to be used. The Hook rebels set up camp on a hill. That was their base. That hill gave them a place to rest, hide, and plan their attacks. Lansdale's team wanted to drive the Hooks away, but instead of attacking the camp, they started a rumor. Lansdale sent men into nearby villages to spread a story. The men swore they saw an Aswang in the forest near the hill. They said it was hunting people at night. They acted extremely scared. The rumors spread. A few days later, the rebels heard it, but they didn't leave the hill. So Lansdale moved to the next phase of his plan. One night, a group of Hook rebels walked through the forest. They were about a dozen men moving in a single file, but it was dark. Lansdale's men waited nearby. As the rebels passed, Lansdale's men quietly grabbed the last man in the line. The other rebels just kept walking. They didn't realize anyone was missing until they reached their camp on the hill.
We don't know the name of the man who comes last in the line. All we know is that at some point he's no longer part of the patrol.
The rebels wondered where their man was, so they went back into the forest to search for him. That's when Lansdale finished the plan. His team ended the life of the missing rebel and punctured his neck with 2 holes, vampire fashion. Then they left his body on the trail for the others to find. Soon the rebels found the body. They noticed the bite marks on his neck, and they remembered the rumor about the Aswang in the woods. They panicked.
Every member of the patrol believed that the Aswang had got him.
The next day, the rebels packed up and abandoned the hill. The CIA's trick worked. For decades, this operation remained secret. But in 1972, Lansdale published a memoir. It had stories about his time in the Philippines. He also described how he created this fake vampire or Aswang to scare rebels away. The public was amazed, but some people had doubts. They found it hard to believe that kind of plan actually worked.
I don't think they would give up their own hideout because of an Aswang scare. Let's remember that this group of men Lansdale was talking of were not ordinary men, but guerrilla fighters.
Whatever people believe, one thing is certain. The rebels left that hill and they never came back.
I wouldn't put it past the CIA. Those the CIA. They could do whatever they want to do just to harm people. So I could believe that. Just to get some blood on them hands. I could believe it.
a CIA manual that taught people how to be annoying in order to defeat the enemy. The CIA's Guide to Acting Stupid.
Okay, so before we get into that, okay, the CIA Guide to Acting Stupid, okay, they are still winning on stupidities, okay? The CIA is still winning on this right here. This right here, it still goes on to this day. Let's check it out.
2008, the CIA declassified a special book. It was a manual written by American spies. Naturally, the public rushed to see what was inside. They expected tips on fighting, code breaking, and other exciting stuff. But when they opened it, they were shocked, because that spy manual was basically a book teaching people how to act stupid. It was titled The Simple Sabotage Field Manual. It was written in the 1940s by the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, which was the agency that eventually became the CIA. They created the manual during World War II to solve a specific problem. At the time, Hitler had already taken over many countries in Europe. That meant citizens in those countries were now living under Nazi rule. When the Nazis took over a country, life didn't just stop. Trains still had to run. Factories had to produce supplies. Farms needed to operate. So the citizens were forced to keep these systems running under German control. However, that put those ordinary citizens in a strategic position. They worked inside the very factories, train yards, and offices the Nazis depended on. It was the perfect opportunity for sabotage. That's when the American spies wrote the Sabotage Manual. The idea behind the book was genius. It encouraged citizens to make daily life unbearable for the Nazis. They could do that by creating problems that looked like accidents. Things like starting fires, flooding warehouses, or breaking tools.
The weapons in this manual were salt and nails and candles and pebbles and sugar and dust.
The manual called it purposeful stupidity.
Like sprinkling dirt into mechanical equipment to cause failures, or something as simple as constantly dropping your tools while working.
On their own, these actions looked small, but together they could slow everything down.
Seemingly innocuous actions that, when applied cumulatively, stall the hell out of the war effort.
The manual also had advice for people forced to work in Nazi offices. It gave managers creative ways to waste time at work.
Hold conferences when there is more critical work to be done.
Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible.
Work slower in general. Don't teach new people how to do the job properly.
They were also told to cry at work, spread gossip about coworkers, and ask their bosses annoying questions. These were small acts of resistance that looked like normal behavior. Eventually, World War II ended. The Nazis were defeated, and people stopped using the manual. Years passed, and people forgot that it ever existed. Then in 2008, the CIA released some old files. Among them was the Sabotage Manual. The public read it, and they noticed something familiar. A lot of the sabotage advice sounded like what happens in workplaces today. Pointless meetings, slow decisions, useless arguments. Someone on Reddit joked that their workplace is full of spies. Others said the manual is basically how to be a manager or supervisor 101. The Simple Sabotage Field Manual is actually on the CIA website today. This next chapter is...
Okay, so this is what they are programming us to be: stupid, useless, don't think for yourself. This is so crazy, okay? Leave a comment below. I will respond to every single comment. Please, guys, let's talk about it. This specific CIA one right here, I love this one, because this is how society is nowadays. The stupidity in the workspace, the people you speak to do not have the conscious thoughts. The CIA is winning still up to this day. We are so naive, and we just think everything is normal.
About a CIA plan to scare millions of kids using a toy. The toy the CIA tried to hide. Some CIA projects sound fake, even after you read the actual files. This one is one of those unbelievable projects. It involved a terrorist, a toy, and millions of kids. In 2006, Osama bin Laden was hiding. He was the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks in America. Behind the scenes, bin Laden was trying to recruit more followers. He had many supporters, especially in the Middle East. In some places, even children saw him as a hero. The CIA wanted to destroy that image, so they launched Operation Devil's Eyes. The goal was simple: make make kids in the Middle East fear and hate bin Laden. To accomplish that, the CIA needed a toy made to look like bin Laden. They were Osama bin Laden dolls, and the code name for these dolls was Devil Eyes.
They were Osama bin Laden dolls. That's right, we've got a couple images of them here. The code name for these bin Laden dolls was Devil Eyes.
The CIA had no experience designing toys, so they reached out to someone who did. His name was Donald Levine. He was one of the greatest minds in the toy industry and a former executive at Hasbro. Levine was a legend in the toy world. He was the man who created the G.I. Joe action figures. That's how big he was. Levine joined the project and arranged for the dolls to be produced. This is what he created. At first glance, it looked like a simple action figure of bin Laden, but the doll had a disturbing trick built in.
The face of the figures was painted with a heat-dissolving material, which was designed to peel off and reveal a red-faced bin Laden who looked like a demon.
Simply put, the face could change from normal to terrifying. It would go from this to this demon face. It was psychological warfare. If children saw bin Laden as a monster, they might stop seeing him as a hero. But the CIA had one last problem. They had to get the dolls to children without anyone tracing it back to the agency.
The plan was to send these toys, cheaply packaged in backpacks alongside school supplies and other toys, to the Afghanistan-Pakistan region.
The dolls would be distributed as part of a charity drive. They would be handed out along with school supplies and other helpful items. Everything was set. All the CIA had to do was mass produce the dolls. But at the last minute, they took one last look at the samples.
There were only 3 individual action figures ever created, and these were merely to show what a final product might look like.
And they decided not to move forward with the plan. The agency never explained why. The 3 sample dolls were stored away with the project files. For years, almost no one knew Devil Eyes existed. Then in 2014, one of the dolls mysteriously went up for auction.
An Osama bin Laden action figure is being auctioned off in the US with a starting price of $2,500.
The CIA's hidden project was no longer hidden.
The doll is one of 3 figurines originally commissioned by the CIA to distribute to children in the Middle East in a bid to stop them joining Al-Qaeda.
But that only made the story stranger. No one seemed to know how a secret CIA doll ended up for sale.
It's not clear how auction house Nate D. Sanders procured the doll, but operators say the rare item comes with a letter of authenticity.
One doll eventually sold for over $11,000. Another was later sold for more than $6,000. The doll never reached the children it was designed for, but it showed how far the CIA was willing to go to destroy their enemy's image. This next
They just remind me of the crack epidemic with the blacks. Okay? So, there's 2 things in this whole segment. Number 1, the CIA is capable of doing whatever they feel like doing. Don't get that fucked up. As a society, we have to understand that we are so fucking programmed. We are so programmed that we don't even think. Number 2, the CIA can do whatever they feel like it. And they would just tell you, oh, sorry. Once you understand those 2 concepts, that you're going to get a sorry from the CIA, and they can do whatever the fuck they feel like doing. It's crazy. Because this is just like the crack epidemic with the blacks. These people went to another country to influence little kids' mind to say this person who you guys look up to is the devil. Do you see how evil white man is? Do you see how evil the white man is? A lot of fucking epidemic crisis that comes into this universe have to do with the white man. You have to stop and look at yourself and say, oh shit. What have I done in this universe to contribute blood? Because my skin tone is more fair than your skin tone, but you have caused more damage than I have. But somehow my skin tone is still fair from your people. But your people is the one that goes out and sharing blood every single day. That is crazy. That is crazy. But once again, that's the CIA for you. The crack epidemic was just like this.
Chapter is about an intimate object that the CIA tried to turn into a weapon. The CIA's condom conspiracy. This CIA operation sounded like a childish prank, but it was serious. The goal was to embarrass enemy soldiers in a deeply personal way, and to do it, the CIA used something almost everyone has access to, a condom. In the 1950s, the CIA created a department called the Office of Policy Coordination. It was top secret. Their job was simple: find ways to weaken America's enemies without firing a shot. The idea was that you didn't always need to fight with physical weapons. Sometimes embarrassing the enemy could be just as effective. Soon the department came up with a plan, but it sounded like a bad joke.
The plan was to distribute American military-grade condoms, sized extra large, but mark them as medium and somehow smuggle or scatter them into the Soviet Union.
The plan had 3 steps. Step 1, buy thousands of extra large condoms. Step 2, change the labels on the boxes from extra large to medium. Step 3, drop the mislabeled boxes in enemy territory. The planners predicted what would happen next. A Soviet soldier finds the packet. He reads the label. He sees the size, maybe even tries it on. Then he starts comparing himself to American men.
The hope? That Soviet men would encounter them and think, "Dear God, this is what American men consider average?" And then spiral into self-doubt.
It was supposed to create deep-seated personal insecurity.
The idea was to undermine Soviet morale by implying that American men were physically superior.
It was a childish plan, but the CIA felt that morale could be attacked in small ways. For some reason, the plan was never carried out, but it was the kind of idea that was too ridiculous to forget. People around the agency kept talking about it. It became an inside joke. Decades later, the files were declassified, and the internet laughed about how this insane operation almost happened. This next chapter is about 6 Americans who...
Oh man. That's the bullshit right there. It's crazy. It is crazy. It is crazy. That's the bullshit right there.
Who were being hunted by thousands of people in a city, so the CIA had to come up with an outrageous plan. The CIA's most bizarre rescue mission. This rescue mission involved 1 man with a briefcase. 6 people were trapped in a very dangerous country, and the CIA needed to get them out. But these people couldn't run or fight, so they had to build an entire escape plan around a lie. Create a fake Hollywood movie. It happened in 1979. Iran was going through a revolution. The citizens just overthrew their ruler, known as the Shah. To many Iranians, the Shah was a tyrant, and they blamed the US for helping him stay in power for decades. When the Shah was overthrown, he fled to America, but Iranians wanted him sent back to face justice. The situation was already tense. Then the US gave the Shah asylum. That decision poured fuel on the fire. To many Iranians, America was protecting their enemy.
America is being accused of aiding and abetting the hated exiled dictator.
Protesters burned American flags and chanted in the streets. Soon, the anger reached another level. A mob stormed the US embassy in Iran. Any American caught inside could be detained, interrogated, or executed. Dozens of US citizens were captured in minutes, but the mob didn't get everyone. During the chaos, 6 Americans slipped out of the embassy. They ran through back alleys hiding from protesters, but they were trapped in Iran, surrounded surrounded by thousands of people who wanted to hurt them. Hours later, the 6 Americans found a place to hide. They went to the home of the Canadian ambassador in Iran. He took them in immediately, knowing what it would cost him if they were discovered. But they couldn't stay there forever. Iran's new government wanted every missing American found. He deployed the Revolutionary Guards to round up any American personnel that may have escaped into the city. The 6 were being hunted.
They're literally going from house to house to house.
The 6 Americans discussed their options for leaving the country. They couldn't just walk into an airport and fly home. They had American passports, so they could be arrested at the airport. They also couldn't drive out of the country. They would be stopped at a checkpoint or border. There was no clean way out. That's when the CIA became involved. The best spies in the world were given this assignment: find a way to get the 6 Americans out safely. CIA agents came up with many cover stories.
Could they be school teachers? Well, the schools are all closed. Could they be technicians from the oil field?
None of the ideas seemed convincing. Then a CIA officer named Tony Mendez came up with a unique idea. What if the 6 Americans posed as a Canadian film crew? The idea solved several problems at once. They could say they came to Iran to scout locations for a movie, and it explained why 6 foreigners were leaving the country as a group. The timing also worked in their favor.
The cultural sector of the new Iranian government still wants to attract foreign currency, and that includes film investment.
It was the perfect cover story, but there was one problem. The Iranians could check if the movie was real, so the CIA had to make a fake film look like a real Hollywood production. First, they needed a movie script. The CIA bought the rights to a script called Argo. It was a sci-fi story that was similar to Star Wars. Then they created a fake production company called Studio 6. They even rented an office and installed a working phone line.
They got signs made for the doors, Studio 6. Tony did the artwork for a piece that appeared in Variety.
On paper, Studio 6 was a working film company. The next step was the most dangerous. Someone had to fly into Iran and walk the 6 Americans out in person. Tony Mendez flew into Iran pretending to be a Canadian movie producer. He got through the airport. Then he made his way to the Canadian ambassador's house. He met with 6 Americans and laid out the plan. He gave each of them a Canadian passport with a new identity. But paper wasn't enough. If anyone asked questions, they had to answer perfectly. They needed to know their fake name, their fake jobs, and everything about the fake movie.
And they had to study scripts, they had to study backgrounds, they had to sound like they could convincingly carry out the role they were supposed to carry out.
Once they could answer without hesitating, there was nothing left to prepare. They had to get through the airport. The day finally came. Tony and the 6 Americans walked into the Tehran airport. They were carrying Canadian documents with fake identities. They made it through the first security check, but they still had to pass immigration. Some of their documents were forged. One careful look was all it would take, but they were lucky.
He grabbed our passports, pulled the cards out, handed them back to us, didn't even look at us at all.
The group made it through immigration. Then there was a delay with the flight.
We are sorry to inform you that Swiss Air Flight 363 will be delayed due to mechanical problems.
But eventually the flight was called. They boarded the plane and took off. They were out of Iran. For the next 17 years, the CIA kept its role in the rescue hidden. Then in 1997, the agency declassified the files. Only then did the world learn the truth. The rescue was so impressive that Hollywood actually made a movie about it. They called it Argo. This next CIA
for 17 years, they laughed in our faces, and they made a movie about it. But we still choose to go every single day and clock in and say, we love America.
operation was a disaster because one of the men involved was secretly working for the enemy. The CIA's impossible secret tunnel. This CIA operation was a real-life Mission Impossible. It involved digging a secret tunnel under enemy territory where getting caught meant execution. That alone made it dangerous. Then one of the men who helped plan it turned out to be a traitor. He leaked the whole operation before it even started. The mission was called Operation Gold. It happened in Berlin in 1954. At the time, Americans and the Soviet Union were deep in the Cold War. Both sides were spying on each other non-stop, and Berlin was one of the most important places for spies. The city was packed with soldiers, diplomats, and informants from multiple countries.
And you've got British, American, and Soviet spies all flocking to the city to try to get their hands on any sort of information that can give their country just a little bit of an edge.
Then American and British spies heard something. Soviet commanders in Berlin stopped using radios for sensitive calls.
Radio communications were easily intercepted, and ciphers and codes could be cracked, as evidenced during the Second World War.
Instead, they switched to underground phone lines. The Soviets believed those lines couldn't be touched. They were wrong. If the CIA could tap into those cables, they could hear Soviet military plans in real time. The problem was reaching them. The cables were underground in an area watched by the Soviets, so the CIA came up with a plan. They would dig a tunnel under Berlin and reach the cables from below. It was risky, so almost no one was told about it. Only a tiny circle of people knew about the plan, and one person in that circle was working for the other side. Before a single shovel touched the ground, the plan was laid out in secret meetings. One of the men in those meetings was George Blake. George was a British intelligence officer. He was also a double agent. Years earlier, he read books about communism and switched sides.
Having decided he wanted to work against his own agency and country, he handed a note to his captors offering his services as a spy.
George pretended to be loyal to Britain and America, but every secret that crossed his desk was passed to the Soviet Union. So when George found out about the secret tunnel, he handed those notes to his Soviet contact. That left the Soviets with a choice. If they blew up the tunnel right away, it would be obvious someone tipped them off. So instead, the Soviets sat on what they knew.
The Soviets made a decision to allow the tunnel to be built.
But they were waiting for the right time to strike. The Americans and British moved forward with the operation. They built a warehouse on top to hide the entrance of the tunnel. From there, crews dug straight towards Soviet cables. Once the tunnel was finished, they installed listening equipment to tap the phone lines. For nearly a year, the CIA and British intelligence eavesdropped on thousands of Soviet phone calls. The mission looked like a huge success, but it really wasn't. The Soviets knew they were being listened to, so the calls that mattered most were never made on that line at all. In 1956, the Soviets decided it was time. They made it look like they discovered the tunnel by accident.
The Soviets discovered the tunnel after heavy rains revealed the cables on the streets of East Berlin.
Then they invited the press to see the tunnel. They hoped the scandal would embarrass the Americans, but it backfired. Reporters weren't outraged, they were impressed.
Other Western nations are not downtrodden at the discovery. They're impressed by the technology. They're impressed that we were capable of something quite so bold.
Meanwhile, the CIA still had no idea that George Blake was a double agent that sold them out from day one. 5 years later, the truth came out. In 1961, some Soviet spies defected and revealed that George Blake was working for them. George was arrested.
He was tried, found guilty of spying, and sent to prison for a total of 42 years.
Only then did the CIA finally piece it together. Operation Gold was doomed before it even began. In 2007, the CIA declassified files about the operation.
While the CIA declassifies a report on the top secret mission in 2007, it has never fully disclosed the intelligence gathered.
They revealed how the tunnel was built, but they never shared what they actually heard on those Soviet phone lines. These declassified CIA stories are strange, but they're also a warning. Powerful people can make secret choices that affect real lives. So my friends, don't trust what you're told. Not by a government, not by what's trending on your Instagram feed. Do the research yourself, because the truth doesn't always go viral.
Well, that's the CIA for you right there. That was an awesome video, honestly, guys. Once again, I want to say grace and gratitude for everybody that have been supporting the channel. Please keep sharing, like, subscribe. I'll have a part 2 to this video. If you're into a video like this, please subscribe, like, and comment. I upload video every single week. If you missed the last one, click the link up here. Once again, grace and gratitude. Enjoy your own energy and be kind. We're out.